Imagine waking up to find your pristine backyard turned into a crime scene. Not by thieves, but by the very people who claim to protect your community standards. Footprints stamped through your vegetable patch like a bad joke, a broken gate swinging mockingly in the breeze, and your security camera revealing the culprits. Your HOA board, playing amateur detectives with all the grace of bumbling cartoon villains. But this wasn't just a petty prank. It was the spark that ignited a firestorm, exposing a web of lies, greed, and laughable hypocrisy that would bring the whole rotten system crashing down. I always knew my neighborhood was a pressure cooker disguised as suburbia. You know the type, perfect lawns, matching mailboxes, and an HOA rulebook thicker than a phone directory from the 90s. Me? I'm Alex Rivera, a quiet IT guy who fixes networks by day and tinkers in my garden by night. I moved here 5 years ago for the peaceful community vibe, or so the real estate agent sold it. What she didn't mention was the whispering campaigns, the passive-aggressive notes about unauthorized bird feeders, and the self-appointed guardians who treated every minor infraction like a federal offense. For months, I'd been the target of rumors, whispers that I was hiding something, because I skipped those mandatory volunteer events where everyone pretends to bond over planting identical shrubs. I kept my head down, smiled politely at block parties, but inside, I was cataloging every slight, every absurd fine for a fence paint shade that was one hue too bold. Little did they know my silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. It started on a muggy Tuesday afternoon. I just wrapped a brutal shift debugging a corporate firewall when I noticed the mud. Fresh tracks snaking around my shed. The kind that screamed intruder, but looked too clumsy for pros. My backyard's my sanctuary. Fenced high, padlocked gate, solar lights winking like sentinels. I live alone, no pets, no visitors without a heads up. So when I saw the crushed zucchini vines, the splintered trellis stakes, and that gate latch dangling like it had been chewed by a beaver on steroids, my gut twisted. What the hell? I muttered, pulling out my phone to scan the security app. And there it was, timestamped 11:47 a.m. 3 figures scaling my fence like rejects from a bad heist movie. Leading the pack was Veronica Hale, the HOA president and reigning queen of petty tyranny. Every subdivision has a Veronica, a Karen with a power suit and a perpetual scowl. Her bob haircut so rigid it could deflect bullets. She waved her ever-present clipboard like a magic wand, barking at her sidekicks, Ted and Marlene. Hurry up! He's at work. We have full authority to check for violations. That greenhouse extension screams non-compliance. Spoiler, it didn't. I built a modest greenhouse last fall, permits in order, inspected twice. But Veronica had it in for me ever since I bowed out of her annual flowerbed unification day. Apparently, not joining the cult of color-coordinated petunias made me public enemy number 1. On the footage, they stumbled through my herbs like drunk elephants. Ted snapping a basil stalk under his loafers, Marlene knocking over a rain barrel while snapping photos on her phone. See? This soil looks too fertile. Bet he's using unapproved fertilizers. Veronica hissed, her voice dripping with that faux moral superiority that makes you want to laugh and scream at once. We'll slap him with a fine that'll make his wallet weep. They poked around for 12 minutes, ignoring the private property sign I'd ironically installed after their last drive-by inspection. By the time they clambered back over the fence, Veronica's pants snagging on a splinter, eliciting a muffled curse, the damage was catalogued. A cracked solar panel, trampled time, and that gate lock she'd clearly pried open with what looked like garden shears from her own approved toolkit. I stood there in my kitchen, replaying the video, a slow burn building in my chest. These weren't kids' TPING houses. These were adults, elected officials in khakis, treating my home like their personal playground. I printed screenshots, dug out my permits, and jotted notes on every infraction they'd committed. Hypocrisy at its finest. The HOA preached respect for boundaries while literally breaking mine. That night, I barely slept, but not from anger, from planning. The confrontation hit the next morning. Their weekly HOA meeting was in the community clubhouse, a bland room smelling of stale coffee and faded glory. I strolled in mid-rant, Veronica droning about someone's unruly holiday lights from 3 months ago, with a folder tucked under my arm and a smile that could curdle milk. Veronica, I interrupted, my voice steady as a scalpel. Head swiveled. The room went pin-drop silent. She blinked behind her cat-eye glasses, clutching her gavel like a lifeline. Alex, this is a closed session. If you have concerns. Oh, I do, I said, slapping the prints on the table. Like how you, Ted, and Marlene decided to play cat burglars in my backyard yesterday. Breaking my lock, ruining my garden, all while pretending you're the law. The color drained from Ted's face. Marlene fidgeted with her pearls. Veronica straightened, that trademark smirk creeping in. We were performing a routine compliance audit. Your greenhouse has been flagged for potential overreach. As per bylaw 7.2. Save the legalese. I cut in, dropping the permit copies like mic drops. Fully approved. What isn't approved is trespassing, vandalism, and your little photo safari on private land. You didn't knock, didn't leave a note, just wrecked and ran. She leaned forward, voice honeyed poison. You can't film us without consent. That's an invasion of privacy. I chuckled, low and dark. On my property? Without my consent? Pot, meat kettle. This footage is headed to the cops, and that damage? Bills in the mail. I turned on my heel, leaving them sputtering. Ted mumbled something about misunderstandings. But Veronica's glare could melt steel. They thought I'd fold like the others, pay the fine, apologize for existing. Fat chance. By noon, I was at the police station, handing over the evidence packet to Officer Reyes, a no-nonsense vet with a mustache that screamed, "Seen it all." He flipped through the stills, eyebrow arching. HOA folks? Climbing fences? That's a plot twist. They cut my lock, stomped my plants, acted like they owned the place. I explained, keeping my tone factual. I've got timestamps, video, even soil samples if you need. He leaned back, smirking faintly. We've fielded gripes about this board before, overzealous fines, harassment. But evidence like this? Gold. Trespass, destruction of property. You pressing charges? Absolutely. As he typed the report, I felt the first twinge of satisfaction. These clipboard crusaders hid behind community good. But strip away the facade, and they were just bullies in polo shirts. Later that afternoon, Detective Lang called, asking to survey the scene. We walked the yard. She noted the boot prints matching Veronica's sensible flats, the sheared lock. They didn't even try to hide it, she said, shaking her head. Arrogance like that bites back hard. Word spread like cheap gossip. Neighbors whispered over hedges. Veronica cornering old Mrs. Jenkins on her porch, ranting about saboteurs undermining harmony. It's that Rivera boy, she reportedly hissed. Always the lone wolf. Now he's stirring trouble. I heard the rumors amp up. I was uncooperative, secretive, maybe even running an illegal grow-op in that greenhouse. Hilarious, considering my crop was heirloom tomatoes. But I stayed silent, letting them dig their hole deeper. Then came the emergency meeting. The clubhouse buzzed with 30-plus residents, a mix of the curious and the aggrieved. I slipped in quietly, taking a back row seat. Veronica took the podium, flanked by her minions, her voice quivering with manufactured outrage. Fellow homeowners, baseless accusations have been leveled against this board. Rest assured, all actions align with our sacred covenants. Like fence hopping? Boomed Mr. Grady, the grizzled vet from down the street, his walker thumping for emphasis. That's not in the bylaws, Ronnie. That's burglary light. The room erupted in murmurs. Veronica's cheeks flushed. It was a visual inspection. We suspected non-permitted structures. I stood then, voice cutting through like a knife. You suspected wrong. No notice, no permission, just destruction. And it's not just me. You find folks for ugly doormats. Harass the Wilsons into selling over a swing set. Rules for thee, not for me. Ted stammered. We meant well. Well doesn't cut it. I shot back, pulling out my phone. I've filed charges. Police are involved. And here's a petition under City Code 12-5 for an abuse of power review. Sign if you've had enough of this farce. Veronica's eyes widened like saucers. This is outrageous. We're volunteers. Guardians of property values. A laugh rippled, mine included. Guardians? More like gatecrashers. Hands shot up. Signatures flowed. Miriam from next door grabbed the sheet. Where do I sign? They dinged me $200 for excessive holiday lights last year. By meeting's end, 25 names. Enough to force city intervention. Veronica stormed out, clipboard clattering, her empire cracking. 2 days later, Detective Lang updated me. They confessed to entry but claimed implied rights. No proof. City's eyeing charges. Oh, and that lock? Sheared with HOA-funded tools. Escalates to felony vandalism. I grinned inwardly. The audit hit next. A city rep poring over records, uncovering Veronica's solofine spree, unauthorized entries on 2 other lots. One family fled after her inspections turned invasive. Ted threw her under the bus. I thought we were just peeking from the street, Marlene echoed. She said it was legal. The board got slapped with violations. Enforcement frozen. Court date loomed. Veronica called pre-hearing, voicemail dripping desperation. Alex, let's resolve this amicably. Drop the nonsense, and we'll waive any future fines. I saved it as evidence, her amicable sounding like a threat wrapped in sugar. The hearing was a circus. I arrived suited, folder ready. Veronica shuffled in late, bags under her eyes, Ted lurking like a guilty shadow. The judge, stern as granite, heard my presentation. Footage rolling, damages itemized. You invaded this man's property, caused havoc under false pretenses? He grilled. Veronica puffed up. HOA covenants grant inspection rights under CC and RS. He silenced her. Covenants don't trump trespass laws. You're not cops. You're busybodies. Restitution ordered, injunction issued, no more uninvited visits. But the real bombshell? A week later, city ballots for board dissolution. I hosted a barbecue, turnout massive. Veronica's house? Shuttered, yard weedy. Poetic justice. Post-hearing, the dominoes fell faster. Veronica ghosted, no resignation, just absence. Her lawn, once the envy of enforcers, sprouted dandelions like rebellious flags. Ted cited stress leave, vanishing to his basement hobby of model trains. Marlene clung on, but doors slammed in her face. Neighbors boycotting her Unity teas. The oversight panel reversed bogus fines. Mrs. Jenkins got back $800 for a non-conforming mailbox. The Patels reclaimed funds from a visual pollution citation on their Diwali lights. Veronica handled it solo, the panel noted dryly. No votes, no oversight. Classic overreach. But questions nagged. Why my yard? The greenhouse was legit. I dug deeper, requesting HOA minutes. Buried in a 6-month-old transcript. Vague chatter about northern easement expansions. My lot bordered the edge. County records revealed a rejected proposal, Veronica's pet project for a scenic community path, slicing through backyards, mine included, right past my greenhouse. Rejected for insufficient consensus. But she'd persisted. It clicked. They weren't hunting violations. They sought ammo to force corrections, claiming land for her legacy trail. They'd pulled it on another resident, harassment until sale. I compiled the docs, met Lang at a coffee shop. They snooped the greenhouse perimeter, not the structure, I pointed out. Looking for leverage. She scanned, eyes sharpening. If they fabricated issues to push a dead proposal, that's fraud territory. Subpoenas flew, emails surfaced. Veronica to a developer. Secure the North Strip. I'll handle obstacles. Rivera's not a team player, skipped our greening vote. Discreet inspection needed. Another, find dirt. We reclaim for the greater good. The developer bailed, providing chats. She assured access was locked in. Charges piled. Fraud attempt, conspiracy, alongside trespass. Media frenzy. Suburban schemer. HOA head in land grab bust. Screenshots of her fence climb went viral locally. Her imperious scowl memed into oblivion. A reform collective formed, the Edge Alliance. First meet in my driveway, chairs circling like a council of the fed up. No revenge, just fixes. City drafted curbs on HOA overreach. Mandatory mediation for boundary beefs. Trials loomed. Veronica lawyered up, claiming community zeal. Emails begged to differ. Prelim hearing. Judge shredded her dismissal motion, quoting her discreet plots. Ted and Marlene pled down. She fought on, delusion intact. Neighborhood thawed. Fences mended collaboratively. Newsletters touting events sans threats. I replanted, adding a sign. Roots run deep. No trespassers. Lang dropped by. Full indictment. For counts. Trials a spectacle. I offered veggies. She quipped. Run for board. Nah, I said. I prefer winning from the sidelines. The trial unfolded in a stuffy courthouse. Rain pattering like applause. I watched Veronica enter, poised as ever, lawyer trailing like a reluctant shadow. Gallery packed. Neighbors, officials, a reporter jotting furiously. Judge Harlan, infamous for gutting graft, banged order. Prosecution timeline. Entry, wreckage, fabrications, developer dalliance projected large. Judge interjected. You peddled unowned land, then sabotaged to seize it? Veronica's counsel stammered. Miscommunications. Deceit, she snapped. My testimony. Straightforward, identifying perps, detailing harms. Never notified of any trail. No vote. They hid it knowing we'd balk. Veronica's turn, voice firm, words flimsy. Stewardship demands vigilance. Emails? Out of context. On the lock. Implied access via covenants. Judge. Implied by ghosts? Laughter echoed. 2 days, jury out 3 hours. Guilty across the board. Sentencing. Restitution. Service. Decade ban from boards. Civil suit followed. Class action unearthing embezzlement. HOA cash on dinners. Campaigns. Cousins services. Settlement. Refunds galore, transparency mandates. I skipped sentencing, tending my plot. Shift palpable. Chats over coffee. Kid games sans fines. Mr. Grady gifted a plaque. For flipping the script. As he left, I eyed my fortified gate. Not fear, but fortitude. Routine resumed. Codes cracked. Evenings serene. One night, backyard movie bash. Westerns flickering, popcorn shared. No clipboards in sight. HOA endured. Reformed. Cooperative, not coercive. We reclaimed more than land, our sanity, our say. But here's the kicker. Was the real villain the HOA rules, or the egos twisting them? You tell me. In a world of community enforcers, who's truly breaking the peace?